the shattered promise. The contractions were coming faster now, each one stealing Olivia Winter's breath as she gripped the hospital bed railing. The sterile room with its beeping monitors and antiseptic smell was a stark contrast to the luxurious penthouse she had left behind just hours ago. "You're doing great, Mrs. Reed, just a few more pushes," the midwife encouraged, her calm voice barely penetrating the fog of pain. Olivia fought the urge to scream. Where was Dominic? Her husband had promised to be reachable during his critical business meeting in Barcelona. The tech mogul CEO of Vision Corp had sworn on their unborn child that he would drop everything the moment she went into labor. Yet here she was, alone except for the medical staff and her best friend Tessa, who stood beside her, feeding ice chips between contractions and shooting daggers at her phone as she tried reaching Dominic for the 20th time. "Still nothing," Tessa muttered, pushing her copper hair behind her ear. "His assistant Gerald says he's in an important meeting and can't be disturbed." Another contraction ripped through Olivia, and this time she did scream. The pain was blinding, all-consuming, but somehow not as devastating as the growing certainty that Dominic had lied. Again. "I need you to push now, Mrs. Reed," the doctor said firmly. Olivia summoned her strength, drawing from a well of determination she didn't know she possessed. 20 agonizing minutes later, her daughter's piercing cry filled the room, and the doctor placed the squirming, red-faced infant on her chest. "Hello, Penelope," Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face as she gazed at her daughter's perfect features. In that moment of profound connection, Dominic's absence crystallized from disappointment into something harder, colder. Tessa's phone chimed with a notification. She glanced down, then froze, her face draining of color. "What is it?" Olivia asked, her voice hoarse. Tessa hesitated, clutching her phone like it might bite. "Liv, it's nothing. Just focus on Penelope right now." But Olivia knew her friend too well. "Show me." Reluctantly, Tessa handed over her phone. It was open to Instagram, where an acquaintance had posted from a yacht party off the coast of Barcelona. In the background of the sun-drenched photo, Dominic Reed, her husband of 3 years, had his arm wrapped around a willowy blonde in a bikini, raising a champagne glass to the camera with his trademark charismatic smile. The timestamp, 2 hours ago, while she had been pushing their child into the world. The hospital room seemed to tilt and narrow as Olivia stared at the evidence of her husband's betrayal. She had suspected, of course, the late nights, the business trips that multiplied after she became pregnant, the way his eyes slid away when she asked detailed questions. "I'll kill him," Tessa said flatly, taking her phone back. Olivia looked down at Penelope, now sleeping peacefully against her chest. A curious calm settled over her. "No," she said softly. "That would be too easy." 3 days later, Dominic Reed strode into the hospital room with an enormous bouquet of peonies, her favorites, and a stuffed bear with a diamond bracelet tied around its neck. His handsome face was a perfect mask of concern and joy. "I came as soon as I could get away," he said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "The Barcelona deal was more complicated than anticipated. But I'm here now. Let me see our daughter." Olivia watched him silently as he approached the bassinet where Penelope slept. His designer suit and perfectly styled dark hair spoke of wealth and confidence, the appearance of a man who had everything under control. "She's perfect," he whispered, his finger gently tracing Penelope's tiny hand. "Just like her mother. How was the yacht?" Olivia asked quietly. Dominic froze, his back to her. When he turned, his expression was carefully neutral. "What yacht?" "The one where you were drinking champagne with your girlfriend while I was in labor." He sighed, running a hand through his hair in a rehearsed gesture of exasperation. "Olivia, you're exhausted. The hormones must be—" "Don't." Her voice was steel. "I saw the pictures, Dominic. I'm not asking if you were there. I'm asking how it was. Was it worth it?" His facade cracked just slightly. "It wasn't what it looked like. It never is with you." She adjusted herself in the bed, wincing at the pain. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go home and pack your things. By the time Penelope and I are discharged tomorrow, I want you out of the penthouse. You can't be serious." His voice rose slightly before he caught himself. "Liv, we just had a baby. We need to think about her future, our family. I am thinking about her future. I won't have her growing up watching her father lie to her mother. I won't have her thinking that's what love looks like. Dominic's expression hardened. This is ridiculous. You're talking about destroying our family over one misunderstanding. One. Olivia laughed, the sound brittle. Dominic, this has been happening for over a year. I just chose not to see it. He approached the bed, his voice dropping to the persuasive tone that had closed billion-dollar deals. Look, I made a mistake. I admit it. But think about what you're throwing away. Think about our life together, everything we've built. Everything you've built, she corrected. I've just been the perfect accessory, right? The supportive wife who looks good in photos and hosts your business dinners. She met his eyes. Not anymore. His jaw tightened. You're being irrational. We'll discuss this when you're thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly in my life, she said quietly, looking at their sleeping daughter. You have until tomorrow. When the door closed behind him, Olivia finally let the tears come. Not for the man who had just left, but for the life she had believed in. The carefully constructed illusion that was now shattered beyond repair. As Penelope stirred and began to cry, Olivia gathered her close, making a silent promise. They would be okay. They would rebuild. And they would do it without the shadow of betrayal hanging over them. Little did she know that 5 years would pass before Dominic Reed would truly understand what he had lost. And by then, the divorce papers would already be in her hand. Rebuilding from ashes. The autumn sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Olivia's downtown office, casting golden patterns across her drafting table. At 34, she had rebuilt her life from the ground up, much like the building she designed, with careful planning, solid foundations, and an eye toward the future. Mom, look. I drew our house. 5-year-old Penelope bounded into the office, waving a crayon drawing with the enthusiasm only kindergartners could muster. Olivia smiled, taking the colorful paper. It's beautiful, Penny. You even got the rooftop garden right. Her daughter beamed, her dark curls, so like Dominic's, bouncing as she nodded. Ms. Patricia said I'm the best drawer in the class. Artist, Olivia corrected gently, pulling Penelope onto her lap. And I believe it. Sorry to interrupt. Olivia's assistant, Renee, appeared in the doorway. But Mr. Grayson is here for your 3 o'clock and... She hesitated, glancing at Penelope. And? Olivia prompted. Mr. Reed's assistant called. Again. He's requesting to take Penelope this weekend, even though it's not his scheduled time. Olivia felt the familiar tension creep into her shoulders. In 5 years, Dominic had maintained only the barest minimum relationship with his daughter, scheduled monthly visits that often got canceled due to unavoidable business, commitments, and orchestrated by his personal assistant rather than the man himself. Tell Gerald that Dominic needs to follow the custody agreement. If he wants changes, he can call me directly. Renee nodded and retreated. Olivia turned to Penelope, who was now arranging colored pencils by size on the desk. Penny, why don't you go sit at Renee's desk for a few minutes while I talk to Mr. Grayson? Then we'll head home for pizza night. With extra cheese? Penelope asked, already skipping toward the door. Is there any other kind? When her daughter was out of earshot, Olivia closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. 5 years of single motherhood had taught her resilience, but Dominic's sudden renewed interest in their daughter made her uneasy. The meeting with her client went smoothly, and an hour later, Olivia was unlocking the door to their brownstone, a far cry from the sleek penthouse she'd once shared with Dominic, but infinitely more of a home. Penelope raced inside, heading straight for her art table while Olivia ordered their usual Friday pizza. As she set plates on the kitchen island, the television in the living room caught her attention. Dominic's face filled the screen, his expression grave as he stood before a crowd of reporters. Allegations that Vision Corps' privacy protocols were compromised are being taken very seriously, he was saying. I personally guarantee that we will cooperate fully with investigators and make this right for our users. Olivia turned up the volume slightly, watching her ex-husband navigate the press conference with his trademark charm, even in crisis. The news ticker at the bottom read, Tech giant Vision Corps faces scandal over user data breach. Her phone rang, startling her. Unknown number. Hello? Olivia. Dominic's voice was instantly recognizable, sending an unwelcome shiver down her spine. I need to see Penelope this weekend. No greeting. No pleasantries. Typical. That's not our arrangement, Dominic. I know. His voice sounded different, strained. But I need to see her, please. The please caught her off guard. In all their post-separation interactions, Dominic Reed had demanded, instructed, and directed. He had never once pleaded. "I just watched your press conference," she said carefully. "Is this about the scandal? Are you worried about your image?" A sharp exhale. "No, for once this isn't about work. I just realized some things, important things, like the existence of your daughter." The bitterness slipped out before she could stop it. "I deserve that," he said quietly. Another surprise. "But I'm asking for a chance, Liv, one afternoon." The nickname, one he hadn't used since before their separation, hung in the air between them. Olivia glanced at Penelope, happily drawing at her table, unaware of the conversation that might alter the careful balance of her world. "Sunday afternoon," Olivia conceded finally. 2 to 5. "I'll text you the address." "Thank you," he said, and she could hear the relief in his voice. "And Liv? I'm sorry for everything." She ended the call without responding. Sorry didn't begin to cover it. Sunday arrived with clear skies and Olivia's mounting anxiety. She had told Penelope that her father was coming to visit, trying to manage expectations without projecting her own misgivings. When the doorbell rang at precisely 2 o'clock, Penelope was the first to reach it, yanking it open with excitement. Dominic stood on the porch, holding a small gift bag and looking utterly unlike the polished CEO from the press conference. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt, his hair slightly tousled by the breeze. But it was his expression that stopped Olivia cold, the look of wonder as he took in his daughter's face. "Hello, Penelope," he said, kneeling to her level. "I'm your dad." Penelope, suddenly shy, glanced back at Olivia for reassurance before turning to Dominic. "I know, I have your picture by my bed. You're taller in real life." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "May I come in?" Olivia nodded stiffly, stepping aside. Her home suddenly felt too small with his presence filling it. The afternoon unfolded with awkward starts and stops. Dominic, usually commanding boardrooms with ease, seemed at a loss with his own child. He watched Penelope show him her drawings, her books, her collection of rocks from the park, with an intensity that suggested he was trying to memorize every detail. When Penelope ran upstairs to find her favorite stuffed animal, Dominic turned to Olivia, who had been keeping a careful distance. "You've done an amazing job with her," he said softly. "She's incredible." "She is," Olivia agreed. "No thanks to you." He flinched but didn't argue. "I deserve that too." "What do you want, Dominic, really?" "Because if this is some image rehabilitation strategy during your company's crisis—" "It's not," he interrupted, his eyes holding hers. "The crisis at Vision Corps, it made me realize what matters. What I've been missing. Who I've been missing." Before she could respond, Penelope bounded back downstairs with her stuffed elephant. The moment passed, but Olivia felt unsettled by the sincerity in his voice. By 5 o'clock, Penelope was chattering excitedly about seeing her father again soon. At the door, Dominic hesitated. "Thank you," he said to Olivia, "for today, for raising our daughter to be so perfect." She needed at least one parent who showed up. Olivia replied evenly. He nodded, accepting the barb. "I'd like to see her again regularly, be a real father." 5 years too late, she said, but without the heat from before. Something about his demeanor, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen, made it harder to maintain her anger, though not impossible. "Better late than never," he offered with a shadow of his old confidence. "That remains to be seen." She crossed her arms. "We'll stick to the custody schedule for now. If you can manage to show up consistently for 3 months, we'll discuss modifications." As he walked to his car, Olivia noticed that the sleek sports car he'd always driven was gone, replaced by a sensible luxury sedan. A small thing, perhaps, but it made her wonder what else had changed. That night, after tucking Penelope in, Olivia sat at her kitchen table with a glass of wine, scrolling through business news about Vision Corps' troubles. The company Dominic had built, sometimes at the expense of their marriage, was facing its biggest challenge yet. The timing of his renewed interest in fatherhood couldn't be coincidental, yet the look in his eyes when he'd seen Penelope, that hadn't been calculation. That had been something else entirely, something that made Olivia's carefully constructed defenses waver, just slightly. She closed her laptop and sighed. Dominic Reed was a master of persuasion, of making people believe exactly what he wanted them to believe. She had fallen for it once before. She wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The reckoning summer heat shimmered above the pavement as Olivia watched Penelope race toward the playground. 3 months had passed since Dominic's unexpected return to their lives, and against all her predictions, he hadn't disappeared again. Every scheduled visit, he was there, punctual, prepared, fully engaged with their daughter. No business calls, no assistants making excuses, just Dominic showing up consistently for perhaps the first time in his life. "She's getting faster," he commented, settling beside Olivia on the park bench. Their weekly handoffs had evolved from tense doorway exchanges to these more companionable park meetups. "Track and field day is next week at her day camp," Olivia said. "She's been practicing." Dominic nodded, his eyes never leaving Penelope as she conquered the monkey bars. "I'd like to be there, if that's okay." Olivia studied his profile. The past months had revealed subtle changes in him. The designer suits had given way to more casual attire. The perpetual phone checking had stopped. Even physically, he seemed different, the sharp edges of ambition softened by something that looked suspiciously like humility. "It's during work hours," she pointed. "Out, I'll move things around." "Like you moved things for her birth?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Dominic turned to face her, pain flashing across his features. "I deserve that. I'll always deserve that, but I'm trying to be different now, Liv." The silence stretched between them, filled with 5 years of hurt and questions. "Why now?" she finally asked. "Is it because of Vision Corps' troubles? Are you worried about losing everything and suddenly remembered you have a daw?" But something had held her back. And now, after watching him with Penelope week after week, she found herself hesitating again. The doorbell interrupted her thoughts. Dominic stood on her porch, his expression serious. "I know it's not my day with Penelope, but I needed to talk to you. Alone." She let him in, noticing he carried a slim leather portfolio. "Penny's at her friend's birthday party. She'll be home in an hour." They sat at the kitchen island, an uncomfortable echo of countless conversations in their old penthouse. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, opening the portfolio. "About the past, about us, about what I want for the future." "Dominic, please let me finish." He slid a document across to her. "I've restructured Vision Corps, brought in new leadership. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations." Olivia scanned the paper with surprise. It was a press release announcing his transition to an advisory role, effectively walking away from the company that had been his obsession for a decade. "Why would you do this? Vision Corps is your life." "That's the problem," he said quietly. "It was my life, and I lost everything that actually mattered because of it." He met her gaze directly. "I lost you. I almost lost Penelope. I'm not making that mistake again." "What are you saying?" He took a deep breath. "I'm saying I want a second chance. Not just with Penelope, but with you. With us." Olivia stared at him, momentarily speechless. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything." She stood abruptly, retrieving the manila envelope from her office. When she returned, she placed it before him. "Divorce papers," she said flatly. "I've had them for months." His face fell, but he nodded slowly. "I understand. Do you? Do you understand what it was like, Dominic? To be in labor alone while you were with another woman? To build a life for our daughter while you sent birthday gifts with your assistant's signature? Do you understand how completely you shattered my trust?" "No," he admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "I can't possibly understand, but I want to try to make it right. Not just with words, but with actions. Every day, for as long as it takes." Olivia shook her head, fighting unexpected tears. "It's too late. Maybe," he conceded. "But Penelope deserves parents who at least tried everything before walking away for good." He pushed the envelope back toward her, unsigned. "I'm not asking you to forgive me today. I'm asking for time to show you who I am now." The front door burst open before she could respond, Penelope rushing in with a party favor bag. "Dad, you're here on a Wednesday." Her delight was palpable as she launched herself into his arms. Dominic caught her, his eyes never leaving Olivia's. "Just a quick visit, Penny girl. I needed to talk to your mom about some grown-up stuff." Later, after Dominic had left and Penelope was in bed, Olivia sat alone with the unsigned divorce papers. His words echoed in her mind. Penelope deserves parents who at least tried everything. She thought about their daughter's face lighting up when she saw her father, the father who now showed up, who called when he said he would, who seemed genuinely changed. The question was whether that change was real, and whether it was enough. Crossing bridges, absolutely not, Olivia stated firmly, crossing her arms as she faced Dominic across her kitchen. His expression fell slightly, but he persisted. It's just a weekend at the lake house. Penelope would love it. She's been talking about wanting to learn to fish. A whole weekend? With both of us playing happy family? Olivia shook her head. That's sending the wrong message. To whom? Dominic challenged gently. To Penelope, or to yourself? 6 months had passed since he'd returned the unsigned divorce papers. 6 months of consistent co-parenting, of Dominic proving his commitment day after day. The tension between them had slowly transformed into something more complex, a reluctant respect, occasional moments of the easy camaraderie they'd once shared, and an undercurrent of something neither was ready to name. Olivia turned away, busying herself with dinner preparations. You're asking for too much, too quickly. I'm asking for a chance to create memories with our daughter. With separate rooms, he added, a touch of humor in his voice. I'm not expecting anything else. She glanced back at him, noting how at ease he seemed in her kitchen, so different from the man who'd once been uncomfortable anywhere outside a boardroom or five-star restaurant. Now he was chopping vegetables for the salad without being asked, moving around her in a domestic dance that felt unnervingly natural. Penelope will be disappointed, he continued, his tone careful. She's been drawing pictures of the three of us fishing all week. It was a low blow and they both knew it. Fine, Olivia relented, pointing her knife at him. But separate bedrooms, separate bathrooms, and absolutely no romantic overtures. This is for Penelope, that's it. His smile was triumphant but gentle. Understood. The lake house turned out to be not the lavish retreat she had expected, but a rustic cabin on a secluded shore. Penelope bounded from the car, immediately enchanted by the wooden dock stretching into the clear water. Can we go swimming right now? She asked, already tugging at her sneakers. Lunch first, Dominic said, unloading their bags, then swimming. Olivia watched their daughter race inside to explore, then turned to Dominic with surprise. No staff? No catering? He shrugged, looking almost sheepish. I thought it would be better if it was just us. I've been taking cooking classes. You? Cooking? Olivia couldn't hide her astonishment. The Dominic she had married considered microwaving a significant culinary achievement. I've learned a lot of things in the past few years, he said quietly, meeting her gaze. Most importantly, what matters. That evening, after Penelope had been tucked into bed, Olivia found herself on the dock with Dominic, the night sky ablaze with stars. The silence between them was comfortable, laden with unspoken thoughts. Why didn't you sign them? She finally asked, the question that had lingered for months. The divorce papers. He took a slow breath, considering his answer. Because ending our marriage would feel like admitting I couldn't fix what I broke. And I'm not ready to admit that. Some things can't be fixed, she said softly. Some things shouldn't be, he agreed. But us? I think we're worth trying to repair. You destroyed my trust, Dominic. You weren't there when I needed you most. He nodded, accepting the truth of her words. I know. And I'll regret that every day for the rest of my life. He turned to face her directly. But Liv, I've changed. The man I was. The one who put work above everything, who lied, who treated you as an accessory to his success, he's gone. I hate him for what he did to you. And who are you now? She asked, searching his face in the moonlight. Someone trying to be worthy of his daughter. Someone trying to deserve a second chance with the woman he never stopped loving. His voice was rough with emotion. Someone trying to rebuild what matters brick by brick for however long it takes. Olivia looked away, her heart conflicted. I don't know if I can trust you again. I know, he said simply. I'm not asking you to trust me today. I'm asking you to watch me earn it day by day. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of swimming, fishing lessons, campfires, and Penelope's delighted laughter. Olivia found herself relaxing, caught up in the simple joy of seeing her daughter so happy. And if she occasionally caught herself enjoying Dominic's company too, his dry humor, his attentiveness, the way he now listened rather than dominated conversations, she tried not to examine it too closely. On their final morning, as Dominic packed the car while Penelope collected shells by the shore, Olivia wandered through the cabin one last time. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet, was a drawing Penelope had made. 3 stick figures holding hands by a blue lake, labeled Mom, Dad, and me, with a bright yellow sun smiling down on them. Simple, perfect, and utterly heartbreaking in its childish hope. When they returned to the city, Dominic helped carry their bags inside, then hesitated at the door. "Thank you," he said, "for giving me this weekend." Olivia nodded, suddenly unable to find words. "Liv," he said softly, "I know you still have the divorce papers, and if you decide to sign them, I'll respect that, but I hope you won't, not yet." After he left, Olivia stood in her living room thinking about the man she had married, the man who had betrayed her, and the man who had just spent the weekend showing her who he could be. 3 versions of Dominic Reed, past, present, and possible future. The question was whether she was brave enough or foolish enough to believe in that future. Full circle. The hospital corridor was eerily familiar, though this time Olivia wasn't the one in the sterile room. She paced outside, her worry mounting with each passing minute. "Mom!" Penelope looked up from her book, concern etched on her 7-year-old face. "Is Dad going to be okay?" Olivia sat beside her daughter, smoothing her dark curls. "The doctors are taking good care of him, sweetheart. We just have to wait." The call had come 3 hours earlier. Dominic had collapsed during a business meeting. Possible heart attack, his assistant had said. Despite everything, Olivia had grabbed Penelope and rushed to the hospital without a second thought. Now they waited, the irony not lost on Olivia. Years ago, she had been the one in a hospital bed while Dominic was nowhere to be found. Life had a strange way of bringing things full circle. The doctor emerged, his expression cautiously optimistic. "Mrs. Reed?" She didn't correct him. "How is he? Stable?" It wasn't a heart attack, but a severe anxiety attack that mimicked the symptoms. His body essentially sent a warning signal. He needs rest, less stress, and some lifestyle changes. Relief washed over her. "Can we see him?" Dominic looked smaller somehow, lying in the hospital bed. His face brightened when Penelope bounded in, climbing carefully onto the bed to hug him. "Easy there, Penny," he murmured, though his arms held her tightly. "You scared us," Penelope admonished with all the authority a 7-year-old could muster. "I'm sorry, champion. I didn't mean to." While their daughter chattered about the ambulance and the important-looking doctors, Olivia stood back, watching the tableau with mixed emotions. Seeing Dominic vulnerable shook something loose inside her. A realization that despite everything, she still cared what happened to him. When a nurse arrived to take Penelope for a snack, Olivia moved to Dominic's bedside. "Anxiety attack?" she asked softly. He grimaced. Apparently stepping back from Vision Corps wasn't enough. "The new venture I've been working on. I've been pushing too hard again." "Some habits die hard," she observed. "Not this time," he said firmly. "This was the wake-up call I needed. I'm listening now." Their eyes met, a current of understanding passing between them. They had both changed over the years. Olivia stronger and more independent, Dominic humbler and more reflective. "The doctor called me Mrs. Reed," she said quietly. A shadow of regret crossed his face. "I never updated my emergency contact information." "I'm glad you didn't," she admitted. "I would have wanted to know." 2 days later, Dominic was released. Olivia hesitated before offering, "You shouldn't be alone right now. The guest room is made up." His surprise was evident. "Are you sure?" "For Penelope," she said, not entirely honestly. "She's worried about you." The temporary arrangement stretched into a week, then 2. Dominic was careful to maintain boundaries, never presuming, always grateful. But having him in their daily lives, helping with breakfast, reading Penelope bedtime stories, working quietly at the kitchen table while Olivia drafted designs, created a domesticity that was both foreign and familiar. On a rain-soaked Sunday afternoon, while Penelope was at a friend's birthday party, Olivia finally retrieved the manila envelope from her desk drawer. The divorce papers, now creased and coffee-stained, had lingered there for nearly a year. She found Dominic in the living room, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents. Another change, the admission of needing reading glasses, something the old Dominic would have considered a weakness. "We need to talk," she said, sitting across from him. He set his work aside, giving her his full attention. Yet another change from the man who had once multitasked through every conversation. She placed the envelope between them. "I've been holding on to these for a long time." Pain flickered across his features, but he nodded. "I understand. Do you?" she asked, echoing their conversation from months ago. I think so, he said carefully. You need closure. You've given me more time than I deserve to try to make amends, but some wounds cut too deep. Olivia studied him. This man who had once broken her heart completely and who now sat before her, transformed by failure and redemption in equal measure. The thing is, she said slowly, I've been trying to figure out why I never sent these papers, why I kept finding reasons to wait. She opened the envelope and removed the documents, running her finger along the unsigned lines. I told myself it was for Penelope, that she needed time with both her parents, that disrupting her happiness wasn't worth satisfying my pride. Dominic remained silent, his eyes never leaving her face. But that wasn't entirely true, she continued. It wasn't just about Penelope. It was about us. About seeing if what we had, what we lost, could ever be found again. Hope kindled in his expression. And what did you find? I found a different man than the one who left me alone in labor, she said honestly. I found someone who prioritizes his daughter above everything else, who listens when I speak, who shows up consistently without fail. She took a deep breath. I found someone I could maybe trust again someday. Liv, he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. She held up a hand. I'm not promising anything. I'm just saying, I'm ready to try, to see if we can build something new. Not what we had before, that's gone. But something better, maybe. Something real. Dominic reached across the coffee table, his hand open, waiting. After a moment, Olivia placed hers in his, a tentative bridge across years of hurt and healing. I don't deserve this chance, he said, voice rough with emotion. No, she agreed with a small smile. But you've earned it. Later, after Penelope had returned home and been tucked into bed, they stood in the kitchen, the divorce papers between them on the counter. What do we do with these? Dominic asked. Olivia considered the documents that had represented both an ending and, oddly, a beginning. With deliberate movements, she picked them up and tore them in half, then quarters. We start over, she said, dropping the pieces into the recycling bin. Day by day. Dominic's smile held all the promises she wasn't ready to hear spoken aloud. Day by day, he agreed. As he reached for her hand again, Olivia realized that sometimes the greatest act of courage wasn't walking away from the person who had hurt you. It was giving them the chance to become someone who never would again. And sometimes, just sometimes, people could change enough to deserve that chance. The rain continued outside, washing the world clean, while inside, two people who had once lost everything began the delicate work of finding something new in the ashes of what had been.